Hey, work from homers, Adam Schroeder here. We love bringing you this podcast, and thousands of you have proven that it's been helpful for you. But since time and online storage space aren't free, Naresh and I wanted to come to you personally to ask for your financial support through Patreon. Go to patreon.com/workfromhomeshow and help support the show. And we appreciate your support at any amount you choose. That's patreon.com/workfromhomeshow. Thanks for your support. Let's get to the show.
Forced to work from home by your employer? Laid off or feeling depressed at home? Do you want to make money working from anywhere? We'll show you how to do it from your couch. It's time for another episode of the Work From Home Show. Coming to you from their homes in Austin, Texas and Tampa, Florida, here are your hosts, Adam and Naresh.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Work From Home Show. I'm Naresh Vissa with Adam Schroeder. Today we have Dr. Joseph A. Michelli, Ph.D, C.S.P. We'll have to ask him what that stands for. He's an internationally sought-after speaker, author, and organizational consultant, best-selling author of numerous national and international best-selling books, including The Starbucks Experience, 5 Principles for Turning Ordinary into Extraordinary, The New Gold Standard, 5 Leadership Principles for Creating a Legendary Customer Experience, courtesy of the Ritz-Carlton Hotel Company, and the New York Times #1 bestseller, Prescription for Excellence, Leadership Lessons for Creating a World-Class Customer Experience from UCLA Health System. He's also author of the new book, Stronger Through Adversity, World-Class Leaders Share Pandemic-Tested Lessons on Thriving During the Toughest Challenges. Dr. Michelli was named as one of the top 10 thought leaders in customer service by Global Gurus. His other new book, is called The Airbnb Way, 5 Leadership Lessons for Igniting Growth Through Loyalty, Community, and Belonging. Dr. Michelli is an opinion columnist for the CEOWORLD magazine. So without further ado, Joseph Michelli, welcome to the Work From Home Show.
God, well, thank you for that long introduction. My mom couldn't have done better, so thanks.
Well, you're a very accomplished man, very accomplished. Let's first start with the easy question, and then I'll get to the meat of the interview. But it says next to your credentials, CSP. What is that?
It's a certified speaking professional, the National Speakers Association. You have to go through a bunch of hoops, and then they say you're okay to go on stage, I guess, per them. So we've been doing this for a long time. I also work from home, which is my big credential. And I've been doing it kind of like you guys have for quite a long time.
When you say quite a long time, how long?
You know, I've had offices probably 20 years ago, but in the last 20 years, I've always worked from home.
Oh, wow. So even I don't want to say pre-internet, but before we had all this
high-speed internet.
There you go. I mean, yeah, I think we didn't invent the internet or anything. No, I mean it was definitely rudimentary. I mean, we didn't have a lot of stuff in the cloud. I can tell you that much.
Yeah. Okay. Excellent. Well, let's start with the first question. You focus on customer experience, it seems, based on your books, based on your research. What got you into analyzing and becoming an expert on customer experience? Did you first start out at a big company in their customer service department and become like a director, and that became your passion, or was it something else?
Yeah, kind of that. I mean, I was definitely, I was a psychologist by training, so that's what my PhD's in. And so I was working in a healthcare system, and I was doing customer service. We called it customer service in the day, not experience. That was a later iteration, thanks to Gilmore and Pine. But I was doing customer service, and then I kind of graduated up to being an organizational development specialist for them and merged hospitals together. And it was quite an interesting journey to see that everybody was trying to create this great outcome for patients, but they had very different approaches in terms of how they were going to get it done. And that got me going. And from there, I've continued the journey as the field has burgeoned.
Now, I have to ask, your books, you seem to be really tied to 5 principles. What about the number 5 drives you so much?
That's the greatest question I think I've been asked in an interview. Well, it kind of lays out formulaically. I hate to say that, but I like to do an opening chapter, and then I like to do a closing chapter, and then I have 5 principles with two chapters apiece. So I write these 12-chapter books, and I just kind of have it conceptualized how I can do that. So, and plus, I think if you get 5 plus or minus 2 is about all we can remember. So
interesting. Let's talk about the leadership lessons from your latest book, which is pandemic related, post-pandemic related. What leadership lessons do we need to navigate our teams or companies through this crisis, probably the greatest crisis that the economy and small businesses have faced in modern history?
Yeah, the cool part of this book is that I was in the middle of writing another book. I was writing a book about Godiva chocolate, and the pandemic kind of shut down everything we were doing at production plants and their cafe environment. So I pivoted to my clients. I'm a consultant in customer experience space, and I was on all these task force trying to figure out how the heck do we keep customers in the middle of a pandemic, and how do we keep our people safe. And 140 leaders later, meaning that not only my clients, but they introduced me to their colleagues, and 140 leaders like the CEOs of maybe Marriott, or a CEO of Target or Verizon, Microsoft. Those kinds of leaders got involved in the book, and we started to look at what were they doing to take care of themselves, because leaders can lose themselves in the pursuit of the battle. So that was a big issue. How are they reaching out to each other to get, input from one another? How are they communicating very aggressively, but not just communicating for communication's sake, because you can clutter an already cluttered landscape. And then really, I think at some fundamental level, how can you be transparent and listen effectively to the wants, needs, and desires of your customers, internal and external, so that you could position products and services in a very narrow timeline. You couldn't always plan much beyond a week or a day or a month.
You wrote kind of in the second half of January on your website, you kind of focused in a lot on what you called the gifts of the pandemic. Gifts and pandemic aren't 2 words that have been going together too much over the past, since early 2020. What did you see that made you decide to write a series like The Gifts of the Pandemic?
Well, since I don't ever put posts about Justin Bieber or anybody else out there for clickbait, that's probably as close as I get to being provocative. And frankly, I really believe that there were gifts. Now, obviously, I'm not tone deaf to all of the losses that happen for people. I mean, this is death and, serious disease and businesses lost. And so I get all that. In context, we all went through it. We didn't want it for our worst enemy, and yet it happened to us. So now what? Do we just kind of act like it wasn't there and try to go back to November of 2019? Because if so, you're probably going to be behind all the people who actually are learning something from this. So for me, gifts are teachable lessons that come from the universe, and there were a lot of teachable lessons. People matter. They really do. And we got that. Emotions matter. You can't just sell products without understanding the emotional context in which you're providing an experience, because goodness knows people were heightened in their emotionality. I think that appreciation matters. That this is a time to reflect on what is important, and to let people know that they're important to you, whether that's your people or your customers, your family members. All of that. Technology mattered. We needed to be able to leverage technology to do commerce in a time when commerce could kill you. So, those are some of the minimal lessons. Make it easier for your people and your customers as well. Convenience and safety were top drivers for most consumers.
How can any company follow the Airbnb model for success that you talk about?
Well, all you need to do is get some air mattresses and some Pop-Tarts, and you can start a $31 billion company. And I think for a lot of people who work from home, that's really a great lesson, right? I mean, it is about seeing a need and creating, in their case, a marketplace between buyers and sellers that affected the need. For a lot of people who are part of the Airbnb family, it's simply being able to look at what you don't need. Like, you have extra space in your house. How do you leverage that for economic good? It is a major asset for most people. And how do you leverage that? Or how do you start building, adjacent units to your property so that you can become to generate the profits from Airbnb. So I really believe Airbnb is one of those great things where many people got to work from home or got to have their homes work for them.
Now, one of the things I found interesting about your Airbnb way is it talks about igniting growth through loyalty. And loyalty is something that you don't hear a whole lot about because customers are constantly looking just for the lowest price, not necessarily the company that they're loyal to. You don't hear much about companies being that loyal to their employees a lot. So how do you inspire and ignite growth through loyalty?
Well, first and foremost, I do think you need to be in a price bandwidth with competitors. I mean, I don't think you just be blowing it out of the water into a whole different price trajectory. But if you're in price bandwidth, I mean, within a acceptable amount of variance, then people do purchase based on peace of mind, insurance, right? Like I could go to a place that I have no idea what's going to happen to me and pay less, or I can pay a slight premium and have security that these people are going to take care of me. They're going to refund me if anything goes wrong. Their website's going to work. There are going to be people available if I have a technology glitch. Really, truly, people may not say that's what they do, but if you watch consumer behavior, they really are making decisions that they justify that price difference because of the emotional value that is garnered from being with one brand or another. And our job is to really make it so that people want us to do business with them and they want us to succeed. And that means we have to take care of them beyond just the transactional elements that they're paying their low price for.
Talking about that emotional element, can you give some examples of how companies can build that emotional attachment and that emotional rapport so that customers feel like they belong and that this is a long-standing relationship?
Well, I think you have to, in every business, and I do it for my business as well, you have to say what we want customers to feel at all the major touch points during their journey with us. What is it that my brand stands for? I want them to feel this, that, or the other thing. So let's take a brand like Acura, who's defined it as SUV. They want every customer, SUV as an automotive acronym, they want every customer to feel special, understood, and valued. So at every interaction, we want to be able to say to you, you know what, you're really an important person. You are an Acura customer. Or, let me make sure I understood what you said there. Because it's really important to me that I understand you. And then before you leave, just saying, hey, we know you could have done business with a lot of other people, but I want you to know that it was important to me that you chose us. So that concept of I have built in and designed it across various touch points in the brand to execute SUV, special, understood, and valued. And every brand has a different variation of that. Ritz-Carlton, it's going to be the home of a loving parent, a very elevated, nurturing, high-level experience. That's going to be a vast contrast to say, Zappos, where they're trying to just deliver wow or happiness, depending upon how you want to flavor it.
That sounds great, but as your business owner, maybe you think that up. How do you implement it with your employees and kind of pass on that vision and that ability to communicate with the people? What's kind of the keys to doing that?
Well, I think you have to select people who are capable of doing it. I think you have to be very upfront with people that we are in the happiness business. We may be selling shoes, but we intend to be one of the happiest places on earth. Before his death, bless his soul, Tony Hsieh at Zappos sued Disney, claiming we have proof that we are the happiest place on earth. I think that you have to know what you want people to deliver, and you have to be able to tell them, this is what we do. If you don't like it, then go to some other place. Go to Nike, where you want to dominate and you want to crush the competition. If that's what gets you excited and you want people to leave feeling, we've accomplished something, you're part of the winner, then that's where you should go. But if you're into nurturance, you maybe should hang out at the Ritz-Carlton. And so if you select for it, then I think you have to talk about it all the time. It has to be part of your conversation. It's not good enough just to check off the boxes and the operation, the benefits and attributes of the product. The Ritz-Carlton, every day, they're doing lineup and they're talking about, we are ladies and gentlemen serving ladies and gentlemen. And by that means we're going to elevate the senses as part of creating the home of a loving parent. And then we're going to find examples of where we did it, and we're going to celebrate that in the culture. So it really is a constant grooming of that in order to have it show up in the lives of your customers.
In one of your books, you talk about the term design thinking. what is design thinking and how can our listeners implement it into their everyday lives?
Well, and it probably is in the Airbnb book because all three of the founders of Airbnb, well, two of the three founders at least, went to design school, the Rhode Island School of Design. And design thinking is an approach. It's really in keeping with iterative design or agile design, or there's a variety of different modalities of it. But the concept here is that in order for you to have it succeed, you have to design it typically from the vantage point of the user. So what is the user seeing, thinking, feeling, doing at every single touch point when they interact with your brand? And how do we design interactions that cause them to feel what we want them to feel? And that's not manipulative. It's the way we want our brand to show up in the marketplace. So let's design it to show up in the marketplace. If you want to be the convenience brand, then let's make sure at all the major moments of truth, people are experiencing convenience. Let's remove the friction points from those interactions so that they'll feel that this brand makes it easy for me and is accommodating to my lifestyle needs. So design thinking is really a matter of knowing what you're designing for and then designing it through the framework of the customer with a constant iterative, agile change to make sure that you're closer approximating what the optimal experience would be.
In your books, you touch on, pretty big name companies. Like you talk about Starbucks, you talk about Ritz-Carlton, you talk about UCLA Health System, you talk about Airbnb. Why did you pick, besides the fact that it looked good on the title, I assume, but what about these companies kind of drew your interest and made you think, these companies can teach people a lesson?
Well, first and foremost, I think you're right. I mean, people aren't going to buy a book about a brand they don't know. So normally we have to have a global brand. And there's two things that I look for besides the fact that they're global, and that is that they treat their people well and they treat their customers well, and that they're on a journey to deliver great and transformative experiences. So those are the criteria for me. But I also started with a very tiny brand, 1,400 square feet of retail space at the Pike Place Market, the Pike Place Fish Market. And from there, I went to another tiny little place, which was Starbucks, which was intending to try to get over to, out to Portland, Oregon, 2 hours to the south. And obviously they overshot their goals. But Airbnb was a small brand. It really truly was nothing more than two guys who were trying to rent out a space. So I think we can look at these as major brands. Almost all of them have traveled the journey to go from tiny to transformative and are beacons in their space. I mean, if you take a Zappos, for example, again, a small brand, Tony Hsieh really stewarded, and yet it's now, it was sold to Amazon for $1.4 billion, I think. So, and that was many years ago. So I think I'm always looking for brands that maybe started small, but figured out how to treat their people well and their customers well to grow, and grow in ways that we all would know their names.
What is the Starbucks way, and what did Starbucks do to make people want to overpay for its coffee when people can just make coffee at home or get it for cheaper elsewhere?
Well, obviously they're not overpaying because they keep paying, right?
They keep paying.
And the alternative name for the company is Charbucks or $4. And, I think what they did fundamentally is they created the living room of the community. At the time, Starbucks really was on a rise. More people owned private jets than they did espresso machines in the United States. It was just a weird thing to drink espresso, right? Espresso-based coffee. So I think they elevated the cup profile of coffee consumption in the United States from Folgers to something that was Arabica and more aromatic and more flavorful. But more importantly, I think they created that place where you felt like you could enter your living room and experience affordable luxury. And we could have a conversation, that may be too informal to have at home and too formal to have in the office. That third place between work and home where people could feel that this is my shared communal space. And I think we were looking for spaces like that. So that's what I think they did really well. And they trained their team that you are in the people business serving coffee, not in the coffee business serving people.
What do you see as kind of you're a big time speaker. What are some of the things that, business leaders, if they're trying to convey their message to their employees, what are some of kind of the presentation or speaking tips that you can give people to really convey their message to their employees as they're getting ready to, get their employees to pass on the experience to the customers?
I think first and foremost, it's not about you. It's about your audience always. It's understanding, what is on their mind, what's worrying them. How does this really relate to them? Why should I give a crap about taking care of your people? And I think that a lot of that message is that the people who learn how to serve others well are not servants, they're servant professionals. And those service professionals end up creating value that causes them to continue to move up in life. I think the most effective leaders in the world have learned how to serve others well. And so I think if you're a leader, you want to sell to your team that being a service professional is noble, and it's the source material for great relationships of all sizes, interpersonal relationships at home, but also if you really want to be successful in business, you better focus on that.
Great. Well, Dr. Joseph Michelli, do you have any final thoughts you want to share with our listeners or anything else you want to promote?
No, I'm a big fan of working from home, and I'm so grateful for the content that you share. And I think we all need to constantly be looking for ways to share the best content we can, because the more value we give, the more value we receive. So thanks so much for your time, guys.
No, thank you. And the websites are josephmichelli.com, josephmichelli.com. That's Michelli, Michelli. Also, Airbnbway.com. That's www.airbnbway.com. Check out all of his books that we mentioned. They're available on Amazon, barnesandnoble.com. They're everywhere. Have done extremely well. And to all of our listeners, check out our website, workfromhomeshow.com. That's www.workfromhomeshow.com. Leave us a review on iTunes, TuneIn, Stitcher, Spotify, whatever podcasting platform you use. If you have any questions for us, hello@workfromhomeshow.com. If you have any questions for Dr. Joseph Michelli, we'll forward it on to him. If you email us, hello@workfromhomeshow.com. Like us on all of our social media, Facebook, Twitter, we're everywhere. So like us there. If you're not subscribed to us on iTunes or Apple Podcasts yet, hit the subscribe button. And again, workfromhomeshow.com, hello@workfromhomeshow.com. Until next week, keep on working from home.